you're shopping around for a sewing machine and the stitch options are what you are getting caught up in, let me tell you that after years of sewing, there are only 3 stitch settings that I use regularly. Hi, my name is Bianca and I've been sewing pretty much every day for nearly 7 years. Now I help you build your confidence in the art of sewing by sharing everything with you that I have learned along the way. So today I'm going to show you the 3 stitch settings that I use to sew all of my clothes, bags and everything in between, so you can skip feeling overwhelmed with all the stitch options and just get sewing. Let's start with the one that I use the most, which is the straight stitch. So whether I'm sewing garments, bags or accessories, this is a stitch that I use that will hold everything together. For normal seam construction, I will use a stitch length that is around a 2.4, but when I want to top stitch something, depending on the thickness of the fabric, I will use a 3 or 3.5. And the straight stitch isn't just for constructing your project, you can use it for basting and gathering as well. Basting is when you lengthen your stitch length to sew a row of stitches that will temporarily hold your fabric together. And this longer length will make it easy for you to remove your thread later on when you no longer need it. You can also use a straight stitch for gathering fabric. So I like to use the longest length on my machine, which is a 5, and I like to sew 2 rows of stitches because that just makes it a lot stronger to pull on the threads. And using 2 rows of stitches makes the gathers a lot neater and a lot easier to stitch down later. You can also use a straight stitch for understitching, sewing darts, and probably a lot more than I can think to name right now. So if my sewing machine could do just one thing, this would be the thing I wanted to do. The zigzag stitch is one of the most multi-purpose settings that you can have on your sewing machine, and I have used it in quite a few ways. So besides using it in the construction of jersey fabrics, I have used it to gather heavier weight fabric, and all I've done is I've zigzagged over a length of yarn or cord and I've pulled on that, because that is a lot more sturdier than sewing 2 rows of stitches when you are dealing with such thick fabric. I've also used a zigzag stitch to neaten the raw edges of my project when I'm working with woven fabric so that the edges don't fray. Now my preference here is to use an overlocker, but there have been times where I've had to send it in for repairs and I've only had my sewing machine, so a zigzag stitch works perfectly fine for this as well. This stitch is also perfect to sew your hems in place on your jersey project, so think about sleeves, the bottom of your t-shirts and also your trousers. The zigzag stitch will allow your fabric to move with the stitches so that it doesn't snap on you. Another place that you can use a zigzag stitch is to decorate your project. So you can use this as a decorative feature, and you can even use a contrast colored yarn for it to pop out on your project. So you definitely want to have this stitch in your toolkit because it's a lot more useful than it looks at first glance. Then there's the buttonhole function. So it might not be one that you use every day or every week, but when you do need it, it's definitely a lot easier and quicker than hand stitching one on instead. My machine has a 1-step buttonhole, which makes it very easy, and some machines have a 4-step buttonhole, but it will give you exactly the same result. The buttonhole stitch isn't just to create functional closures on your trousers or on your shirts, but you can also use it to create openings on the waistbands of your trousers and also on the hoodies of your sweatshirt so that you can thread a drawstring through it. Always test it out though on a scrap piece of fabric from the same one that you're using in your project, but apply a layer of interfacing on the wrong side of the fabric, because that will make the area a lot sturdier for you to stitch your buttonholes onto. These 3 stitches do most of the work in my sewing project, so I hope this gave you a better idea of what stitches are used in everyday sewing. If you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you will enjoy this one here, where I show you how to change the needle on your sewing machine. That's it from me today. Bye for now.